Yes, the Viewpoint is on at 8:15 on the dot, right at 8:15 plus or minus 10
was
or 5, 15 minutes.
Was I talking at the same time he was? Was I?
Well,
is that a frustration for you, staff and management?
Well, let's just turn the key off, and John and Jim and Judy now just have a good morning hour conversation. It is Viewpoint, the program of personalities, politicians, and perspectives. And once again, we have our good friend John Fulton back, and we're going to have Judith Kay make a formal introduction to Mr. Fulton whenever we get around to it. And a well-structured, well-organized program here this morning.
Well, it's a part of my life, you see, and everything in my life is structured the same way.
It's a state of flux. That's what it has. Well, you got to be able to roll with the punches, whatever they are. Kudos, as Mr. Fulton knows. We always, excuse me, please, go to a froggy out there. Always try to start Viewpoint with a kudo or two. And they're going to add two today. The old guy has one. And then Judith Kay will have hers. Judith Kay and I, John, are the beneficiaries of having great neighbors who kind of look after things in the neighborhood. And we've noted before, I've noted this on the air before, our friend Troy Hanger, right behind Judith and I, and across the street, Norman Virginia Newhouse. If you ever know on Lincoln Avenue, that boulevard area, that block is always well tended. They have special little plantings and flowers and
a bench, a flag.
And a bench and a flag. The flag's on 24/7. It has a lighted solar-powered light. It looks nice, and I know the neighbors appreciate it, and I've said this before publicly, and I'm not abashed to say it again publicly. We thank them for their efforts. It's really nice. They take a great deal of pride in that, so kudos to Virginia, Norm Newhouse, and Troy Hanger. And I pass the baton now to you, my dear.
Well, all the churches in town have causes that they back, you know? And Jefferson Street Christian, among other things, will adopt various and sundry causes. And they have adopted the DCFS office, which was in need of adoption. You know, the state, I don't know whether you've heard. John, have you heard about the belt tightening at the state level at all?
I've have any experience with that, John?
Yes, right.
Rumors run your way?
Yes.
Yeah,
so anyway, they adopted this room that's their visiting room at DCFS, which the people have painted. Jake's Furniture gave them a little settee.
Thank you, Jake.
People could come and sit on a rickety folding chair, but they got a real settee. The room is painted. The toys are repaired and cleaned up. And I think that's just wonderful that they do this kind of thing, and they just do it because it's a nice thing to do.
Well, somebody sees a need, and somebody stepped forward to do it. You know, as my almost ad nausea statement is, nothing happens till somebody makes it happen.
Right.
Somebody's made something happen.
And in this case, it was Jefferson Street Christian Church, and they certainly made something happen where people can come to a pleasant room to visit, which is always nicer than an unpleasant room where we visit.
Yeah, I know about that, yeah.
That doesn't mean I don't like you, Jim. Okay.
Well, this room's pleasant enough. It's just a little cramped. It'd be nice.
No, it's not pleasant.
Well, but the man's sitting right here. We don't, you know, let's don't offend him in his own house.
Well, I guess that's true. I'm sorry, Jim.
Well, we go north. We could go north up to Skokie and tell that fellow up there, and that would, he's the guy who's responsible for this. So, anyway, I've been asked to comment for the Elkhart Historical Society. They're going to have a couple more events coming up here. One coming up here is May the 18th. And this will be from Lincoln's Tomb to Arlington and back. And that's not Arlington Park, the horse race. That would be Arlington Cemetery. You understand that?
I don't even know if Arlington Park's still up and running.
Oh, yeah, I think so. I'm not a... By the way, my horse bowed attended in the last 50 yards over there, and I lost on that race. But nonetheless, Elkhart Historical Society dinner lecture And this has been done before down there. Gene and I did that. We're going to have Virgil Davis, a gentleman from Springfield who's just steeped in lore about Lincoln and the various artifacts and the instruments of embalming and so forth, that era. Very interesting. And he's combining with Chuck Fricky here. And they're going to put this program on, and the seating is limited. So 947-2238 for reservation for that. And the date on that is Friday, May the 18th. And then I've been asked by Jenny Bertoni to go a little bit further out to, and I'm happy to do that for you new folks down there in Elkhart. They do a good job down there. Dinners are great at the Wild Hare, a lot of fun. On June the 15th, they're going to have a dinner lecture, and that will be the Edwards Trace, the whole story, and the guest lecturer is going to be Mr. David Brady. And again, 947-2238, the date on that is June the 15th. Tickets are only $25, and it's a nice evening. So
it really is.
Yeah, they have fun down there, and it's interesting, very entertaining. Also, this tonight. Hello, Georgine. How are you this morning?
Today is just
tonight.
Such a day. Here,
7
here,
o'clock
Kitty.
at the Johnson Center for the Performing Arts. The St. Louis Rivermen were going to be on there. This is a fundraiser for the Lincoln College Fine Arts Department. Tickets are available at the box office tonight, and it's a fun time. These are outstanding musicians. They're in demand all over the country at jazz gigs and bookings everywhere. We're lucky to get them. And so tickets are available, I suggest, at the box office, 7 o'clock. So come and enjoy the St. Louis Rivermen. Now, John, you don't run into the immigration problem so much here in your profession here in this. We're kind of shielded here. It isn't like having the Mexicans in Arizona and so forth.
Once in a while, we get somebody from Iowa.
We all have to fill out the paperwork, though.
Yeah. Well, Arizona's Governor Jan Brewer, she's chastising the owner of the Arizona Suns and they were talking about didn't want this, and they were pretty upset that people were working against this immigration. And so the Governor Brewer says, what if the owners of the Suns discovered that hordes of people were sneaking into their games without paying? What if they had a good idea who the gate crashers were, but the ushers and security personnel were not allowed to ask these folks to produce their ticket stubs? Their non-paying attendees could not be ejected. Further, what if the Suns ownership was expected to provide those who sneaked in with complimentary eats and drink? And what if on those days when the gate crasher became ill or injured, the Suns had to provide free medical care and shelter? Well, there's an answer to the Phoenix Suns about immigration, and she further says, I'm a legal American citizen, and I must show my ID when pulled over by the police, making purchases on my department store credit card, when I show up for a doctor's appointment, when filling out a credit card or loan application, when applying for renewing a driver's license, etc., etc., etc. As citizens, we have to do that. The immigrants don't have to have any cards. Enough soapbox. Why don't you introduce our nice guest, Mr. John Fulton?
I'd like to do that. John, a fellow victim of government running out of money, has been with the Extension Service for however long, please?
Working on 32 years.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Without an immigrant in the
32
office.
years. And now you have 3 counties that you supervise. And you've kind of gotten into total supervision, haven't you?
It's been interesting with the extension reorganization and the focus that they have on certain programs and the combinations for administrative units and so forth. So Logan, Menard, and Sangamon are together, and we're very lucky that they're 3 very similar counties, because Sangamon is a large county, has got a lot of the same thoughts and priorities as Logan County compared to some of the other more urban counties, and we're fairly concentric in size. Some of them are strung out from up Cass County down to Calhoun, for example, and some of those kinds of things. So
A person such as yourself would have counties that were that far distant from one another?
yep, all the string in between. Some of them are 5 counties together and so forth, and so we're very lucky in that aspect.
You know, I want to emphasize something. John's duties do not just impact our farm friends alone.
Oh, no.
There's a lot of spin-off that will pertain to you and I in the cities, not only here in this good old rural city, but those folks who live in the major metropolitan areas. So we're just not talking about agriculture per se alone.
Well, and anymore, we're talking about the other programs probably more so because of emphasis right now in our unit is youth, horticulture, and small farms, locally grown type initiatives, because that's where our staff is basically hired into those categories in our unit. Other units may have some community development work and some of the other things, but we're not flush with money, let's put it that way.
No.
But we have educators in those roles and support personnel for them.
If the emphasis for the various areas will change from one thing to the next, who determines what the emphasis for this 3-county area is going to be as opposed to that 5-county area someplace else? Who decides that?
Well, it really depends on which unit it is. In our unit, we did survey work of public, our council members, our committee members, and so forth. But it was open to the public, and it was amazing how similar all 3 counties, the survey results stacked up. And then you have to work within the parameters. The University of Illinois is our flagship for extension gives us, so some of the things we wanted to do weren't on the list, I guess, but outside of that, we hit the high points.
John, I'd like to go back to, you mentioned the mothership at the University of Illinois. Tell us about how the extension program started. What is the genesis of that program, and when did that first come about?
Well, that's interesting. Some of it's kind of chicken and egg type story, but extension started federally in 1914 with the Smith-Lever Act, and that was in order to transfer the knowledge from the universities that are in the land grant system to the citizens of the states. And in Illinois, it's even a little bit more interesting because Farm Bureau and Extension were one and the same when they started. The farm advisor was also the Farm Bureau manager. And you had to sell, I believe it was 500 Farm Bureau memberships in a county to get your farm advisor.
Oh, really?
So in all 3 of these counties, we started in 1918 with operations. I think they had chartered in December of 1917 in all 3 with Logan, Menard, and Sangamon counties, but I'm more familiar with Logan. But then the Farm Bureau manager was also the extension farm advisor for the university, and it was a split appointment at that time.
Would I be corrected? J.H. Checkley, was he one of the early ones here?
He was an early one. Elmer Ebersol was the very first one. He was only here for about 3 years, I think. But
and then they had Nelson Henry Anderson and H. Anderson. And then in the pecking order, nothing is worse than old guys trying to remember. But who came along after, and at what point did you join us?
Well, I think you had Fred Hoppen, and then Harold Brinkmeyer, and then Charlie Engelhart.
Okay.
I came in 1983.
And we're glad for that, too, aren't we? Tell me about since the economics have dictated that we have to combine. In your case, you have 3 counties. What has that done to the operation of your office? Have certain programs suffered a little bit because you just can't extend yourself that much?
Well, some of the things I have in the past been doing are being picked up by others. We have a horticulture educator, Jennifer Fishburne. She's housed in Springfield, but she's up here working with the Master Gardener groups and the Garden Day we hosted and some of the other activities and workshops that are planned in horticulture area. And then Deborah Kavanaugh Grant is our educator for small farms and locally grown. And she does the same thing. She's been trying to work with farmers markets, some of the specific individual growers on some of the different initiatives. I know she's worked quite a bit with Dave Bishop's plan, economics plan for his organic farm and so forth. And so they're working in the counties even if they're not actually housed here. And then we still have our support staff and the 4-H and have support for the Master Gardener program, and we'll be very soon hiring a replacement person to work with the SNAP Ed program, which is the food stamp education program for low income.
The food what?
Food stamp nutrition education program.
Really?
We did that before with part-time people splitting time in the county, and they didn't like the splits because you had to account for every individual minute if they weren't fully paid on that federal grant. But we're going to be doing that and housing the person in Lincoln to cover Logan and Menard counties, and there's 2 of those folks in Springfield that have been working for close to a year now.
There's such an emphasis anymore. Anytime you turn on the news, there's some story about rampant obesity. Is that why you're addressing the nutrition education, and is it spilling into other areas of your work?
Oh, it's all encompassing. A large part of the 4-H and Youth Initiative has been Get Up and Move program and those kinds of things. And this one actually is nutrition education for low-income audiences. You know, don't pick the most convenient thing maybe, but these kinds of foods fulfill your nutritional needs in a better way and at a better budget value to you, and that's very important.
Is your attendance and things like that pretty good?
Actually, that's a program where you go out to the other audiences, whether they're Head Start, some of the low-income classrooms in the schools, the WIC program, those kinds of things. So it's not a you come to our office program. They go out to those audiences.
You also mentioned organic growing. That's really becoming quite popular. Lots of people are really, really into that. And I must confess, know all that much about organic gardening or organic foods. If we went totally organic, we probably wouldn't have the foodstuffs that we have for this country and the things that we export as well, right?
It's very intensive in a lot of ways, including labor and the input side with basically manure, fertilizer is the option, and it's a very intensive process, and so the kudos to the people who go through it to get certified organic, because you can't be certified organic till you're in the production system for a long period of time, so that any kinds of synthetics or things not considered in the organic program have dissipated and so forth. So you're talking like 3 to 5 years to be certified organic.
Now, if you had a small farm operation and you were going for this certification, you could still sell your goods at the farmer's market or what have you. And before you got that certification, you just couldn't label it organic, isn't that right?
Well, you couldn't certify it as organic, right?
But you could label it as organic?
Well, you can say grown this year or some kind of thing, and that's where it gets confusing, you know, because a lot of people are organic gardeners because they don't use any pesticides in any one given year, but every 5 years they use commercial fertilizer on the garden, so, you know, that's not considered in the organic program. But you get into splitting hairs when you're talking about most of the fertilizer are rock products, but they're not considered organic. So,
No, I don't think my wonderful grandfather and his contemporaries knew they were doing organic farming.
Yeah.
They all had livestock. Most of them had cows to milk and so forth. And periodically, they just back up the manure spreader and load it up
Yep.
and start running through the fields.
sure.
The beginnings of organic farming, I guess, but they didn't call it that.
Right. And so, like I said, hats off to those who go through the process. And it's one production method. I'm not saying it's right, wrong, or anything else. That's how some people prefer it, and some consumers like to purchase certified organic. So,
Is there a difference in the nutritional value between organic, an organic product as opposed to a product?
that's a tough question to answer. If you're comparing apples against apples, there shouldn't be any difference nutritionally. It's the fact that no pesticides were used that are synthetic. Even organic can use certain products. A lot of sulfur is used, and some of the botanical type products can be used in organic production as well. So you're really splitting hairs, but supposedly it's a more wholesome product, is what the organic production craze is about.
Who certifies them as an organic
The
grower?
government. The government.
Lots of
I
levels.
figured it was the government, but I didn't know
Everybody,
which
they do everything
branch.
for everybody.
And
It wouldn't
they
be the
also have an
CIA or
organic.
anything.
Well, if we don't take a commercial break, we're not going to have time to do everything for anybody here at all. So we'll slip away for a commercial break, John.